This podcast was brought to you by Dragon Shield. Use code PLAYTOWIN5 at the affiliate link down below for 5% off to help support the show.
Welcome to the Play to Win podcast, where we talk about winning in cEDH. I'm Cam.
I'm Dylan.
I'm Tyler.
And this week we're doing something pretty cool. We're doing a tournament recap report of the Play to Win cEDH tournament that we had at Cloud City. It's our third one, and Tyler won.
Ah, hell yeah.
I was surprised too.
Tyler played Kinnan. He had a great day, a lot of good games, a lot of great plays, a lot of great draws. We're going to talk about the whole thing. It was 64 people. I think overall it was pretty great. There was a little hitch in the beginning, a little repairing, but besides that, there were no problems. Everyone seemed to have a blast, and we're just going to talk about our little experience on that day.
Because we all played. Even though Tyler won, we all played. The whole Play to Win crew was there.
Nate was there as well.
Brandon was there too.
Yeah, I'm top 16.
I made top 16 with Kenrith, which was pretty sweet.
If you'll notice, we haven't brought up how I've done yet. So what could that mean, maybe? Let's just get into it.
No spoilers. No more spoilers. No more spoilers. We're going to jump right into
round one.
Round one, game one. Who wants to start?
I feel like Tyler, you should start.
Tyler, start us off with the day.
You had the great day. How did your first round go?
Can I tell you about my one strategic decision I made going into the tournament before I even went?
Yes.
I was very excited. I chose for, I think, the first tournament ever to not get drunk the night before. So I was not hungover.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
it turned out to be a stellar move.
Ooh, good choice. No
way
hungover.
better.
Yeah, okay.
Did you eat any food or breakfast? Any water beforehand?
Yeah, I got up like well in advance, ate like a whole ass breakfast, like had a bunch of coffee. Yeah, I was feeling
I can't believe this guy cheated by doing all
I
that
know,
before.
I know.
Wow.
None of us did that.
That's crazy, yeah. And what about the night now going into the night before? I know you said you weren't drunk. What about the night's sleep that you got? How was
I
that?
had a great night's sleep. I went to bed at like 12:30, which is very early for me on a Saturday night, to be honest.
Man, if only science could explain what was happening here.
Yeah, it's a mystery. We'll never know.
Truly.
So tell us about your round one now. We're in the tournament.
I didn't take tournament notes really, so I put some down from memory. But round one, forgive me, seat one opponent. I do not remember what my seat one opponent was playing. I remember that everyone in the pod was super nice, and that was basically the whole day. The whole crowd there was awesome. The person before me, I was third in seat order. There was a Corvold before me, and the fourth player was on Tivit. I ended up getting it. In the long run, it was because the turn one player chose to Gilded Drake Corvold after Corvold had been played with Dockside in the graveyard, so like potentially some shenanigans. They Gilded Draked the Corvold instead of my Kinnan, which was out, and I had like enough mana that you might start to get worried. So I think it might have been right for them to do the Kinnan. I'm thrilled they didn't. The Corvold player did then eventually try to reanimate Dockside, and the Tivit player spent counter magic on it. So I ended up getting to have a protected win with multiple pieces of counter magic left in my hand, and it was awesome.
So you just basically were patient. You waited for the players to interact with themselves and didn't speak up.
Yep, pretty much. Exactly. That was a lay low kind of game.
Yeah.
That Gilded Drake move is a tough call because you don't know if like you or Tivit is going to have the interaction for a reanimate. So like if you can make a play to stop that from being an option from the table, and you have a big beater that can help you draw cards if you have the right pieces, that's kind of hard to pass up. But
yeah,
it just does also like give you the opportunity to make some more mana and go, okay, I don't have to worry about this now.
Yeah, I understand the call. When you see a Corvold on the field and you've seen a Dockside, that is like alarm bells should be ringing. Like this Corvold deck could do some real shit soon.
Yeah, there's like a pretty decent chance that Corvold deck can probably untap and win on the spot, whereas you will untap and like maybe play a Seedworm Muse and win in 5 turns from now. You know what I mean? You'll technically give the table some more time, I think, on average, right?
Yeah.
But just looking back, obviously,
yeah,
would have been great to take the Kinnan.
Yeah. I think something we'll remind ourselves a lot today is hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
And that looking back on these games, they always could have been better.
Do you want to go over your round one?
Yeah, sure. So my round one was the biggest disappointment of the day. So I mulled to 3 round one. I'm playing my Kenny deck, Kenrith, the Return King. I'm going second. There's an Atraxa player who mulled to 4 going before me. Sitting to my left is a Blue Farm player, a Timna Crown Blue Farm player. And then in last is a Tivit player who also mulled to 4. So we're all ready for round 2, basically. Like we all kind of know how this goes. The Atraxa player is actually able to get Atraxa out and threaten a little bit of interaction against Blue Farm, but there was really nothing else that we could do. The Blue Farm player ended up getting a turn 1 opposition agent and getting a land out from under Tivit on their turn 1. So I continued to draw like 4 more fetch lands and really wasn't able to do too much that game. So
Who did you say won? Blue Farm won that one.
Blue Farm
Just
took that
too
one
many
handily.
cards.
Yeah.
With so many cards.
Too many cards, and after like interacting with the Traxa just a tiny bit, they were able to assemble a win real nicely.
Was this the Blue Farm player that it was their like second day playing cEDH?
Yeah. He played against me round 1 and said, "This is my second day playing my first cEDH tournament." And we were like, "That's great. Here, have fun in round 2.
Have the game." Yeah.
Yeah.
Super nice guy. He was in my round 2.
He was in my
that's why I
top
asked,
16 pot again, actually. So he ended up doing pretty
Doing
well
pretty
throughout
good.
the day. Yeah.
Nice, cool.
Spoiler alert.
My round 1 didn't go quite as well for me as it did for Tyler. I played against Kinnan. I went second. I played against Thrasios, Bruise, and then Atraxa.
Was it Tim? Do you remember?
On which deck?
On Kinnan. The one who was in the Final Four.
It was
No,
not.
it wasn't the one in the
Okay.
Final Four.
There were
no.
3 Kinnans. That's why I asked.
I think there were more than that because I played against 2 Kinnans, and then there was you, and then I did not play against the Kinnan that was in your top 16. So there was at least 4.
Okay, yeah, the deck lists were optional. When I looked at the what's it called, EDH top 16.
Yeah.
When I looked at the stuff on there for the entries into that tournament, I think I saw 3 Kinnans, but some people may not have submitted deck lists.
Oh
'cause
yeah, we should.
This time
we
they
should,
were optional.
We
Yeah.
should talk about this real quick. If you want to see the actual deck list and everyone who submitted deck list, you want to go to the topdeck.gg link that we have down in the description to see everything, because something happened with the import up to MTG top 8 or EDH top 16, because my name's not in that list at all.
My name's also not in there, so I don't know why.
And initially,
whole
it
numbers
said
are
that I
gone.
won with Turgrid.
Yeah, it's not
which
the
is
case.
not the deck I played. That is my fault, though. I'm almost certain.
Oh, really? Did you put the wrong deck in?
So the day before, I had been looking at my roommate, other Tyler, his casual Turgrid list that he's been putting together. So I think I must have seen Moxfield, been like, yeah, copy that link,
Okay.
without opening it up all the way.
That's funny.
And then just pasted the wrong thing in there. So
I can't believe they didn't make you commit to that Turgrid list.
Yeah, you should have to go home and get that deck.
Well,
Yeah.
the deck lists were optional. Remember, they ended up saying,
I guess
we're
that's
not
true,
actually
yeah.
enforcing deck lists for this.
Going forward, should we ask them, like, maybe that's important to enforce a deck list?
I think
they should be.
probably should. People expect to.
Yeah.
I think for most tournaments that they're taking somewhat seriously.
How do you do this with the importing of the deck list? Do you put in your regular Kinnan list, or do you put in a special list just for today so that it's unchanged?
I put in my regular Kinnan list.
Yeah, that's what I did.
And I trust that if people really want to know what it looked like at the time, they're going to click the history and scroll back to when this date was and figure out what has changed since then. And you could do the math and figure out what changed. I'm sorry. I cannot keep 5 different lists. It's going to drive me nuts.
I agree. I kind of feel the same way. There's some part of me that wishes that they were like locked in time. I wonder if Moxfield has the capability of to like lock a link in time. So if you wanted to, you could see what it looked like on that date.
This is what you do. You hit copy, and then you go tournament copy, and then it's just there. And you
Like,
retitle
make
it
a
tournament
new
copy.
list.
Yeah, you just and then
But then
and
you gotta
have
make a
your
whole bunch of
regular
lists.
list, and then you have this other list that you import into the system, and then you put it in a folder on Moxfield, and you never have to look at it again.
Cameron,
Yeah, that's probably true.
I stopped listening after like the 3rd one. I'm not going to do that.
All right, well, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make us all do that.
So you think that, did you put in your Kinnan list for the day or your overall Kinnan list?
Oh no,
Or
I just put in
Kenrith?
my overall.
Yeah, but
Kenrith
you
list.
didn't even do it. You don't even live in what, you're not
Well,
even living
no,
what you're
'cause-
preaching.
No.
What the hell, Cam?
Either way, my first rounds, Lotho was good. That was my big takeaway. I played a Lotho and it was good. It got me a lot of treasures. It was really a great card. Shieldred, I had an early Shieldred out, which ended up killing the Kinnan player. They were at 5, lost a mana crypt roll, drew for turn, and Shieldred killed him. I was like, at least I got my one check off thing for the day.
Nice.
Unfortunately, Atraxa ended up getting me with commander damage. They just attacked me 3 times and I couldn't get a flyer out in time. I feel like I had pretty decent control of the board otherwise. Even against the Atraxa player, I just couldn't stop them from casting the Atraxa. Once they do, they get so many extra cards. I also forgot that Atraxa had flying at one point and I attacked right into him. So they got to gain an extra 7 life. So that was like a great mistake to start the day off with. And not only that, then I don't have my blocking flying creature to stop them from killing me. So didn't play my best. I ended up getting Cyclonic Rifted from the Kinnan, which slowed me down enough. And then, Atraxa just killed me. And then eventually Atraxa ended up winning the game. That Atraxa deck, I don't know. I didn't really quite love Atraxa at first. It just didn't seem like I could get Atraxa out early enough. It seems like often they're getting Atraxa out on turn 3 and they can just kind of like chill on that Atraxa for a while.
It's one of those decks that can have a lot of inevitability, but I think if they are keeping a hand whose plan is only to get Atraxa out and then Atraxa gets countered or something else
Drannith
goes wrong,
Magistrate.
yeah, whatever it may be, I think the Atraxa decks are very often stuck doing nothing then, which makes it like weirdly both weak to stacks and to faster decks. So it's kind of a weird spot to be in the meta, but I think it can be really powerful.
On paper, I agree with you, and that's what I feel. deal, but this day I feel like I kind of got like whipped around by Atraxa. It felt so much better than how I feel like it should be in my head.
I feel like it just works right now because it's slow. Like, it can do nothing because a lot of other players are doing nothing. So it can sit there and do nothing. And then when they have the time and they have the opportunity, they can draw 5 cards without triggering Orcish Bowmaster, right? So I don't even know if it's good. It's just like a really solid long game plan thing that you could probably replace with a lot of other things that are still going to win the game too. But this one's nice that it goes with food chain.
It thrives in mid-range hell is like I feel like a lot of people are calling. Like, it's one of the few decks that like is just really good at thriving in a grindy, mid-rangey, Ristic Study world. It's pretty good at that, I think.
Yeah. I love that this is held to other people because obviously, like, this is great.
Kidden is fucking Satan in this. If this is mid-range hell, Kidden is the king of hell. Like, Kidden does this better than any other deck, just like grind in that mid-range.
Oh, I'm so happy.
We'll find some of this out as we continue to go. Shall we go into round 2?
Let's go into round 2. Tyler, do you remember this one for you?
Yep. There was a Zerda player in seat 1. I haven't seen Zerda on its own in a while. That was interesting. I mean, it sure does combo with Basalt Monolith, so
sure.
There was a Timnan Kron player, the one from Cameron's round 1.
Yeah.
In seat 2, and then me, and then a Tivit. I believe. And the Tivit and the Zerda both got like pretty quick starts where it looked like they might be threatening wins. It was at least by turn 3. It felt like turn 2 to me, but I was 3rd in seed order, so that might just be positioning. They both built up pretty scary boards. I resolved the Seedborn Muse and kind of said like, hey, don't counter this. I can cast a big Cyclonic Rift and stop both of these players on the next player's upkeep if this resolves, but I can't if it doesn't. I don't think I needed to say that. I don't think anyone had counter magic for it, but that Seedborn Muse, long story short, ends up winning the game, even if I was behind when I put it down, which I was, but then I eventually got a 1 ring. They had a 1 ring, the Tivit player. They also copied my Seedborn Muse, so it looked like it would be a close race there, but I got a clutch Otawara in his end step so that there was no Seedborn untapped. Got to Boseiju a Basalt Monolith on the Zerda player's board, and then I got to run away with the 1 ring and draw a zillion cards.
It sounds like you had like the perfect interaction, the uncounterable, basically uninteractable channel abilities to be able to deal with the problems that they're copying from your board. Just sets it up so that now you're the only one with the problem permanence, and it can really set you ahead.
Yeah, they're so strong. And another thing, so I run Moonsnare prototype in Kinnan, which is not something everyone runs in Kinnan. It's a 1 blue mana, and you can tap it and another creature like Springleaf Drum, but it only taps for colorless. However, you can channel it for 4 and 1 blue to put target non-land permanent on the top or bottom of its owner's library, their choice. And that has been so good. Like, I'm never cutting this card, and I don't know why more people aren't running it. Like,
it's so flexible, right?
Yeah.
The fact that it's efficient mana in Kinnan, it's pretty good mana. And then also as a removal spell at the uncounterability channel, it's just so good.
It comes up a lot, too, because when you play Perplexing Chimera, sometimes you have to give the Perplexing Chimera away. Like, that's how this works. And between Otawara and that card, ways to get rid of that Perplexing Chimera that can't... I think it could exchange, but if it exchanges, then you just have the Perplexing Chimera. It returns. Like, you're getting rid of it either way, and it can't be flat out countered. Like, that is strong.
I have a question about your Seedborn Muse turn. Do you remember how much mana you had when you cast a Seedborn? Like, could you have theoretically just held up Cyclonic Rift and not cast a Seedborn Muse?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say that's a great politic move to just jam Seedborn and say, now you guys have to let it resolve because I had the Cyclonic
That's exactly
Rift.
how it worked.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a matter of blue mana. I don't remember exactly why the blue mana came up, but I also had to cast a Grim Monolith to have enough mana to cast the Seedborn, so I was tapped exactly out with Grim Monolith tapped.
Okay, so you couldn't have just held up Cyclonic Rift. So that's honestly even better, because if they saw that, they might have like tried to like spite punish you or something. But even still, I think it's like a great politic move is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that worked out really nicely, yeah.
How did your run 2 go?
So I'm coming to this game off of a Molda 3, and I'm in 4th seat. I got Tivit going first. We got Najila going second. There's a Magda player going third. And then I'm looking at a hand with turn 1 Dark Ritual into a blue-black Talisman into Imperial Seal on turn 1. And then, all right, well, maybe I can like get Dockside Extortionist or try to find something. I had Finale of Devastation, and I had Demonic Consultation in my hand as well. So if I can find Dockside, I can make a lot of mana, and I can try to present a win. But Magda on their turn 1 goes Land Crypt into Magus of the Moon, and I immediately think I'm going to have another non-game.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't even gotten to play a land. I'm looking at a fetch land and a Tundra or something else, and I'm immediately going, all right, well, I guess I'm going to have a slow non-game here. So turn 2, I get my Talisman down, and turn 3, Tivit tries to win with Time Sieve. but Najeela has already gotten Najeela out. Najeela actually turned 1 Najeela, which was pretty scary, but they kind of have to use their Fierce Guardianship on this time save as it comes onto the stack. And now Tivit's like just done. Tivit's in play. That's what they're doing. Najeela's done. They're tapped out. And then we go to the Magda player, and Magda is in a prime spot. They go get Dockside, and they're actually able to make 7 treasures. After putting the Universal Automaton on the stack, the Tivit player reveals a little bit of extra interaction here and is able to bounce the Magda right now to stop the infinite combo from going off. So Magda tries to go get a Cursed Mirror and copy the Dockside Extortionist and goes up to 8 treasures. I will say immediately in my mind, I thought they were going to get God Pharaoh statue because I couldn't think of another way for them to be able to go get an ETB trigger off of Dockside. They end up fetching Sculpting Steel, trying to target their Cursed Mirror copy of Dockside, forgetting that Dockside is no longer an artifact, or this Cursed Mirror is not an artifact.
Right.
So they have to have it enter as a copy of their Mana Crypt. And now they're stopped. They have 3 treasures left. They can't keep going. Their Magda gets bounced or killed, and now they can't play it. There's nothing else they can do to keep going off, so they pass the turn. And luckily, on my turn 2, after I played Talisman and Imp Sealed for Dockside, I was like, I didn't think I was going to get this far. So I draw Dockside. Dockside makes me 14 treasures.
You just went on the spot?
I just went on the spot. I went and found
awesome.
a meal. I blinked Dockside. Someone tried to abrade it in response. Boom, blink it again. I have plenty of treasures. It was such a game I did not expect to win, but really was like the turning point for the day. I have a confidence boost. I'm like, this is why you don't scoop. This is why you never say that you're not out.
Yeah.
It was a crazy game.
That's funny.
yeah.
So round 3, I had a Magda player make a big mistake.
Magda's a hard deck to play. You got
It
your
is
whole
very
deck
tough,
at your
yeah.
fingertips at any moment. That's a lot to remember. But
Yeah, it's tough to know what the right thing to go get is. And like, there's so many different interactions. And a lot of the deck now is based on trying to like make copies of things. But the problem is it's hard to get the enter the battlefield of those copies because it's like Mirror of the Forebearers or something, which ETBs, you name Dwarf, but then when you copy something like it's already entered the battlefield. You can trigger Magda, but you can't like get a Dockside trigger off of it. So that's why I was like, I don't know what their third thing is. I think they're just going to go get a big stacks piece, but worked out. Yeah.
okay, cool. Got to win. That's all that matters. Win's a win.
But Dylan, tell us about your game too.
I was also able to win my round 2 also due to a little bit of an error of my opponent. I was playing against Tivit, Niv Mizzet, Tivit, and me. So 3 6-mana blue decks, which is a matchup for Blood Pod. Did I even mention that I was playing Blood Pod? I hope I did.
I don't think so.
I'm playing Tim Matana Blood Pod. Jesus Christ, we went off on a tangent. Which is a matchup that I actually kind of like. Big blue slow commanders is one that's like pretty good for me because I can match their end game and I also want to push the end game. I was able to Red Blast a in play Niv Mizzet to destroy it early on, which is great because Red Blast is a little bit worse against the Tivit players because it's 4-mana removal against them. Like it could stop some other things, but it was just well timed that I was able to get the Niv Mizzet out of there. The first Tivit player tried to go off. They had drawn a whole bunch of cards off of like a Heuristic Study or something. They ended up using, I had at this point a Dauntless Dismantler, an Opposition Agent, and one other relevant stacks piece out, but that one, it didn't quite matter to their win. They were able to channel the enchantment that temporarily removes something. What's the one I'm thinking about? It's a 3-mana white enchantment.
Touch the Spirit Realm?
Touch the Spirit Realm. So they were able to channel Touch the Spirit Realm to temporarily get rid of the my Opposition Agent, and then they Savine Reclamation it back to help get rid of the Dauntless Dismantler, which was great, big brain play, but after going through all of it, they ended up being 1 mana short to actually go for the win. So they had to just pass the turn then. My opposition came back in, and at this point, the second Tivit actually had a 1 ring in play that was about to kill him. They were able to at this point,
I remember this.
I remember
saving
this
that for
game, yeah.
I had an Orcish Bowmaster, which was the other stack piece in play that the Tivit didn't quite care about yet. My Orcish Bowmaster was in play. They had a 1 ring in play. They were going to die off of the activation, but they convinced me to let them still draw the cards, and I wasn't going to send the damage there. I was going to send them somewhere else so that I could win on combat damage soon, thinking that they're just going to die anyway. There's nothing they could possibly draw. Angel's Grace is the card that they drew to keep them alive through the 1 ring trigger, but at this point, they were still at like they weren't able to get anywhere. They just had to pass the turn. They had to spend all of their mana, all of their interaction to try to find something, and weren't able to do anything after that. And then by the time it gets to me, I was able to just basically win on combat damage. I just attacked a couple times, and it was kind of interesting. The round of the time of the round was called literally like right as I did my first of 2 attacks that would kill my opponent with lethal on board. Luckily, we had some judge calls, and they said I had an extension. My opponent, Niv Mizzet, who was the only player that was still alive, just took 1 turn, did nothing, and I was able to just win on combat damage. But it was a great game. I was able to get Inferno Titan out, I think, and a whole bunch of other cool creatures out that just like killed the board. Big Orcish Bowmaster token. It's a great game.
Yeah, that was a cool one to spectate and seeing like that player try to figure out how they're going to survive this One Ring turn. And
yeah,
I think they have to like Tainted Pact to try to find Angel's Grace.
Yes, yeah.
So like they're flipping through a bunch of their deck. Like it's no wonder why they had to struggle coming back from that.
Also, I did a big no-no. When you are in a tournament and people are in an actual game, do not give them advice.
Yeah,
you can't do that. The Niv Mizzet player had a Wandering Archaic, and when the player in seat 1 with the One Ring who was about to die to his trigger cast a Tainted Pact to dig, he said something to the effect of like, well, I don't know if I want to copy it anyway. And I could not fucking help myself, and like the like nerdiest kid in class, I was like, actually it's just a free card, you can just take the first one you look at. And then I was like, oh.
I was like, hey, Tyler, you can't say stuff. Can you not tell my opponent to do the Tainted Pact?
Which they ended up going, I think, like 3 cards deep and hitting a lightning bolt off of it that eventually killed one of your creatures. I think I would have felt like real ass if you lost the game because I told your opponent to take the Tainted Pact they were going to pass up. Like, man, I don't do that, guys.
Lesson learned.
Yeah,
everyone was very gracious about it.
Yeah, it was no big deal. But yeah, that was my round 2. Won the game.
Well, we're going to pop into round 3 now. So right now, Tyler is sitting pretty at 2-0 going into round 3. Dylan and I are looking at a pair of 1s in the eye. Little do we know, Tyler's in top 16 already.
Yeah.
From the way that these rounds will work out.
It seemed like if you went 2-0 in the beginning, you were basically locked from that point on.
Yeah. 2 wins
all
gets you into top 16 is what we figured out.
The scoring was 4 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and all 8 points or more made it into top 16, I believe.
There were a couple people with less than 8 points that ended up making it into top 16. Like people that ended up going like 1, 1, and 2 was also a record that was top 16.
I think that was the 16th place.
Yeah, this was a 64-person tournament, so we probably should say that too. So it's not the largest tournament that's ever happened, but sometimes when you have like these more smaller events, you'll get numbers that look like that going into the top 16.
So in round 3, I was really excited because I was like, oh, I'm 2-0. I'm going to be in a pod with other people who are 2-0. We can intentional draw. We're all locked for top 16 anyway. This is going to be great. And we sat down and I looked at my opponent across the table who was playing Cody in seat 1. I was in seat 2 and said, great, so we can intentional draw, like I want to get lunch and whatever, lock top 16. Yes, absolutely. And then the Magda player who was going to be seat 4 sat down, said 2-0. Yeah, great. Let's do it. And then Zach, who we know who is a local player, was 1-0-1 and had to play it out. So we were going to have to play the game. I was like, God damn it. And he's on Tayam, which is a deck that I refuse to ever learn how it actually works. So I do under-evaluate it some of the time. Spoiler alert, he ended up winning it. Other spoiler alert, 3 out of the 4 players in that pod in my round 3 were also in the top 4.
Oh, wow. So it was a good pod. Yeah.
I guess it was a good pod.
Your 1 loss for the day.
Yeah. I was really afraid of this Cody deck, in part because people had been telling me this is a list I haven't seen before. It's capable of hanging in mid-range. It's just not just the Turbonauts plan that Cody usually is. And this dude's a good player, which he is. So I kept a hand that was capable of answering Cody or Magda because those are commanders that I just have a very hard time dealing with. So I kept a Force of Will that I was going to have to pitch a Thrasios to. And a relatively slow hand otherwise. Like I still some turn 1 mana, still like stuff Kinnan wants to do. But the plan was to force one of these 2 commanders, whichever was ahead, or tie them, I guess, if it came to it, and then try and sit back and hope to like kind of win last. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that just did not end up working. I forced the turn 1 Cody. Tayam and Magda both got reasonably quick starts that they began to run away with. And then Tayam in seat 3 just was able to get it with a Devoted Druid a turn before the Magda player probably would have gotten it. The Magda player did have interaction on board that could have messed with the Devoted Druid. There's a dwarf that you can sack for 1 red mana to deal 1 damage to all creatures without flying. And this would have, I think, fucked up the line. We didn't know for sure that Tayam had the win at that point, but I think it was reasonable to assume they would have.
I've had some of the miscellaneous texts come up and be very relevant. So I think as a Magda player, you do really need to be looking out for when that's going to be very helpful for you so that you don't lose.
I think, and also forcing the Cody is probably a good call, because I feel like Kinnon's biggest weakness is like a turn 2 ad nauseum a lot of the time, right? Like that's your most difficult thing to stop.
I think it was, but it meant that my game plan was sculpted around stopping one player and then praying that the other two wouldn't run away with it.
Yeah, and they did.
I have some thoughts about this Cody deck.
Yeah.
And they're really good thoughts. I don't want to make it sound like I'm going to be negative about Cody later, but
I also lost to this Cody deck and would love to talk about it. So yeah, let's do that.
Do we want to talk about it now because we're talking about Cody now?
We can go. We'll go out of order though. I played against Cody round 4. Did you play?
I played against it in the semifinals.
In the semifinals. So let's just talk about when we get there.
Okay.
Cameron, do you want to go next on your round 3?
Yeah. So my round 3, Crick was in seat 1. I was in seat 2. There was an Atraxa player in seat 3, and then Joyra, the Weatherlight captain, was in seat 4.
Oh, Don, he was a really nice guy.
He was, yeah. Crick mulls the 5, and the whole table is like immediately like, okay, well, they're on the play. We're not as worried as we could be right now. I'm able to get a turn 1 fish off of a turn 0 Gemstone Caverns and Enlightened Tutor. But it's followed by Atraxa's turn 1 fish as well, which means Joyra is now like, I really don't want to feed anything. So it really puts him in a really tough spot. We just keep letting Crick spin wheels, letting us draw cards. And I get to a point where I'm ready to win the game. I draw into Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation. So I have some mana and I feel like I'm able to get a super protected Thoracle if I just Finale of Devastation, X equals 2 for Grand Abolisher. And then as my opponent, my Atraxa opponent, spends like 3 cards, including a Tainted Pact, trying to find an answer for this tutor that I'm doing, I'm thinking in my head, I don't run Grand Abolisher in my deck. What the fuck am I tutoring for? And so I see him stop his Tainted Pact at Force of Will, and I'm staring at my 3-mana Thoracle Demonic Consultation, and I'm looking at my deck going, I don't know what I'm going to get. So I get Dranith Magistrate, because now he's got a ton of mana, he's got a fish, and he's going to be able to cast Atraxa. I got to shut him off somehow.
He finds the Force of Will and then lets the tutor resolve.
He lets the tutor resolve, which really should have been my heads up thing, but knowing that I couldn't get Grand Abolisher made me go, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something is wrong, and I'm still gonna lose to something. Like, he has Otawara, or I'm not thinking about something. So they take their turn, they can't cast Atraxa, they cast their own Grand Abolisher, and the whole table is like gripping to the edges, and then they just play like a couple other value pieces and end up passing. The rest of the table can't do much, and by the time I get to my turn, I'm just like, okay, well, I had Rhystic Study in play as well, so I was able to like draw into a Veil of Summer. I can have protection. I Thoracle Demonic Consultation, and the Atraxa player shows me his full hand. There's not a second blue card in sight the whole time. Completely got me fooled. So we got to win. We went 2-1 after game 3 there.
Nice. Go in.
Taking it to the top 16 right there.
My round 3, I felt like I really had no business of getting anywhere close to win throughout the whole thing. I'm looking to 5, and it was a 5 that was only mana. I only had like Mana Dorks and not a whole ton of lands. I ended up missing my second land drop, and eventually I found Eldritch Evolution to get rid of one of my Llanowar Elves for a Manglehorn. I was playing against Jensen, Rogsai, and Atraxa, and the Rogsai player kept 7 and had a Wishclaw Talisman out. So I found the Manglehorn to destroy the Wishclaw Talisman and hopefully slow them down a little bit. Eventually, I was able to Vampiric Tutor for a Mana Crypt to help me play the One Ring, so I felt like there was a world where I was actually inching back in, because for the most part, I really didn't feel like I was in the game at all. Rogsai and Atraxa, they were just doing too much. Atraxa specifically had cast Atraxa a couple times. There was a point in the game where the Rogsai player was putting a Phantasmal Image into play, looking to copy the Atraxa, and I Swords to Plowshare the Atraxa, knowing that they would still be able to cast their Atraxa again next turn, but I didn't want Rogsai to be able to have an Atraxa activation. Even though they were saying they were trying to use that activation to try to stop the Atraxa player, I just know how Rogsai is built, and if you look at 10 cards, you'll probably be able to find a win out of there, and I didn't think my Swords Plowshare was going to do anything against that. Looking back, I do think it was a little bit questionable. Maybe the Rogsai helping the Atraxa player out would have been helpful. At the time, I really just didn't want the Rogsai player to get back into the game. Eventually, the Jensen player, who mulliganed to 4, was able to get an intuition going going. I was able to get some value going. I had my Deathrite Shaman in play, and me and the Atraxa player had communicated that they had a Boseiju and an Abrupt Decay in play. So when the Jensen player intuitioned and found Underworld Breach, Demonic Consultation, and Tainted Pact, we decided to give them the Underworld Breach because the Abrupt Decay and the Boseiju should be enough. It was enough. I had my Deathrite Shaman to exile something. They used an Abrupt Decay. It was enough to stop the Underworld Breach plan.
Perfect.
And they were so tapped out they weren't able to get back anything with the Tainted Pact or the Demonic Consultation. And then we drew. It just went to time, and we weren't able to finish the game, which was a great outcome for me because I didn't see that game actually being winnable for me. I felt so behind. Like, even though I had just gotten the One Ring in play, there was an Atraxa with like a ton of resources out, but we went to time and I got the draw. So I still felt live for top 16 after
You were
this.
1-1-1 at that point.
Well, I was
right?
1-1-1 at that point. Yeah. 1 win, 1 loss, 1 draw. So
Totally
at that point,
live for top
I was
16.
still alive. I was like, great, this is better than a loss. I'll take it. Fine.
We didn't know at the time, but a draw would have gotten you into top 16.
A second
probably.
draw.
Yeah, a second
Yeah.
draw would have given you more of a chance, although I guess that also would have thrown off some of the other math then, too, at the end of the game.
I don't think all of the players could have drawn.
That's
Let it be
probably
known that
fair.
we are dog shit at tournament math.
I've never been the
Yeah.
math guy. Yeah, no, I'm not good.
I kind of am the math guy, and for some reason, this particular like tournament math, I cannot wrap my head around it.
We got to find the equations. I feel like once you learn the math or figure it out, you'll be able to retain it, and then
if
you'll
there
be
was
a
a
math guy.
class on this,
Yeah, we need anyone to teach us what the tournament math is, please.
yeah, seriously,
Cool. Should we go into round 4?
yeah.
Round 4, Tyler.
4.
This is your last round. Our last rounds for the tournament.
The last Swiss round of the tournament.
last Swiss
There will
round,
be
yeah.
a cut to top 16 after this round.
And then Dylan is going to walk out of frame in the podcast. He's
Yeah,
gonna-
I
he's
won't
gonna
be
get
here for the rest
fuck out
of
of here.
Yeah, at this point, I won't be here anymore.
So in round 4, the seat 1 player was the Jensen Lures player that you played in round 3. He really outdid himself after the mulligan to 4 in your round. He mulliganed to 3
Excellent.
in my round.
Oh, boy.
In round 4, which is rough. This is James Nick Foles, who's a play to win community member and
Patron,
just,
yeah.
I mean, he's a community member in the cEDH world in general. Awesome dude. Then seat 2 was Atraxa. I was in seat 3, and then seat 4 was Obnixilis. There was a pretty early Dranith from the Atraxa player. I kept I think it was my second 7, and it just felt like good enough, but it didn't feel like a super strong hand. I was feeling really weak going into this. But the early Dranith really slowed everyone down a whole bunch. Eventually, I got a Perplexing Chimera down, which felt like the thing that answered Atraxa, because Atraxa was kind of the only player that was free to move about the cabin. And with Chimera out, you can't just resolve the Atraxa. Like, I'll obviously just take it. So then everyone was kind of like locked for a little bit. Not much was happening. I had a Mirage Mirror, the One Ring, a lot of the pieces that I want to see, and 2 Perplexing Chimeras. I was feeling like I could probably win, maybe even next turn if it got back around to me. I had a Nyx Bloom Ancient. This is a great place to be. But I had to survive with 2 Chimeras. So on James's turn, on the Jensen Luris deck in seat 1, he cast a Demonic Consultation in the end step right before his turn. And I figured, this gets either Culling Ritual or Toxic Deluge. These are things that Chimera can't trade for that will wipe my whole board. I think even after that with the One Ring, I still wasn't like that far behind, but it opens the Atraxa player back up. So I was really worried about this. So I ended up swallowing my fear and trading one of the Perplexing Chimeras for a Demonic Consultation and resolving a Demonic Consultation. And in Tainted Pact, I got very lucky. It was not in the top 6, and it was like 5 cards after that.
Wait, what card did you name?
What did I say?
You said Tainted Pact.
Oh, I'm sorry. Pact of Negation.
That sounds righter.
Oh,
That sounds more
yeah.
right.
Different
yeah.
pact.
Yeah,
Different
different
pact.
pact. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you exiled top 6 and it was 5 after with the pact.
Yeah, so
Oh,
then I had a pact, and I was also under a chimera at this point, but 2 chimeras is something Kinnan can handle.
Yeah.
So when it got back around to me, I was able to activate the Mirage Mirror pointed at the Kinnan that had been stolen from me by the Atraxa player with a Gilded Drake. I had Mirage Mirror become a copy of Kinnan, and then responded to that on the stack by having it become a copy of Nyx Bloom Ancient. So I had 2 Nyx Blooms momentarily, tapped down a gazillion mana, then had it become a Kinnan. So I was back to just X3 mana. Basically, with that much mana and a Kinnan on board, I was able to, find a way to close it. It took a while. My pod was very patient
Yeah.
as I tried to sort through 60 mana's worth of game actions.
Did you
but
just like activate Kinnan? Like you just go through most of your deck?
bunch of activating Kinnan and then eventually some activating Thrasios. To be honest, I don't really remember exactly what the win moment was,
But you didn't cast many spells because there was Perplexing Chimeras out. So you just kind of.
I did eventually have to get rid of that Chimera. I think what eventually happened is I cast a Tidespout Tyrant, which did resolve because he didn't want to give the Chimera back, and did something to bounce the Chimera with the Tidespout Tyrant.
He probably should have switched on for that.
It's hard to say in that moment because I was in such a winning position when you're trying to pick
It almost didn't matter,
what's the
right?
maximum moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like the game was kind of lost at that point.
Interacting around a chimera in general is really tough because like you kind of have to do things in weird moments. Otherwise, you'll never have the opportunity to do them again.
And also, it makes your decision tree so much more difficult because when every action you can take, basically, the Perplexing Chimera can switch, and you have to think, okay, what happens if they switch? Then who can switch on the next thing after that? It just makes the decision so much harder when Perplexing Chimera is out.
My answer is normally don't do anything.
Just
wait
don't do
for
it. Just
someone
wait.
else to do something,
Right.
and then you take the opportunity to remove it then.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Unless
talk
you
to the
have
table.
the removal, like unless you have the like 2 removal spells or a toxic deluge or something that's gonna like guarantee to get rid of it, you gotta make someone else deal with it. Because they will, and that plan will stop working once everyone starts to pass the buck, and then get it.
How was your round 4, Cameron?
Not good, not good. We were all at a variation of 2-1, whether we had 2 wins, a loss, or 2 wins and a draw, except for the Rogsai player who was coming in at a win, a loss, and a draw. The time that made it to the finals was in seat 1, followed by a Tivit player, followed by this Rogsai player, and then me. I don't really have too much to say about this one besides Born Upon a Wind is a busted card. Rogsai was pretty unassuming. Like, they had a lot of mana, and we thought that we had enough stuff to be able to stop them in play based on Tivit finding Grafdigger's Cage off of their pretty early Urza's saga, and I had a Ranger Captain of Eos in play, which was like my whole strategy. My hand wasn't great. I took a little bit of a mulligan, and I was like, all right, well, I have Ranger Captain here and a little bit of other interaction, but I had tapped out for Kenrith once I had 5 mana, which... Again, I had this Ranger Captain of Eos in play. I thought it was going to be enough to stop Rogsai, but Rogsai still did an end step ad nause, and going into their turn, obviously, I sacked this Ranger Captain. They respond with a Tainted Pact to try to find Born Upon the Wind, which they do relatively quickly, but my whole views on Born Upon a Wind have totally changed. At first, I thought it was like a fine, pretty okay card, but I don't want to leave home without that fucker anymore. Like, that card just does so much. Every time we tried to present follow-up interaction with my Ranger Captain on the stack, they are just able to, say, in response, make a ton of mana and then keep doing and spinning their wheels and drawing cards and tutoring and then finding the Thassa's Oracle to be able to win with instead of an Underworld Breach.
Yeah.
It was pretty nuts. That win ended up getting them into the top 16 with their record, which at the time, all of us people at now 2-2 were like, I don't know if we're going to make it, but it was enough to still get me into top 16. So I was still pretty excited about that.
Nice. Very cool. I lost to Cody in my round 4, the Cody that we were just talking about. I was playing against Blue Farm, who mulliganed to 5, Cody, who didn't mulligan at all, Kinnan, who mulliganed to 6, and then I mulliganed to 6. Basically, the Cody player was able to go through their cascading, but their cascading strategy wasn't just to find Profane Tutor. They were finding Ancestral Visions, and they were finding Wheel of Fate, and they were just kind of banking them till afterwards. So they were spinning. They were able to eventually do one that would find the Profane Tutor. We were able to stop that and kind of the Cody basically kind of presented like what felt like 2 semi-wins. We were able to stop them entirely, except for the last one was a Wheel of Fate that the Blue Farm player was able to flash in an Orcish Bowmaster in response to. So then we were like, oh, we're all completely fucked now. Blue Farm player was able to basically wipe the board, which got rid of the Cody. So in our minds, we were like, okay, Cody's probably done. The Kinnan player, their board was done. Besides the Rhystic Study that they both had, Kinnan and Blue Farm both had a Rhystic Study at this point, but the Blue Farm player was just able to wipe the whole board and had a huge giant creature. When it got back to me, I cast a Dauntless Dismantler, thinking that it would maybe help against the Blue Farm player, stop their Dockside from exploding on mana. They hadn't had like a ton of mana at this point, and I ended up paying for one of the Rhystic Studies, the Blue Farm players. They mulliganed pretty low that game, so I didn't want them to come back even further, even after they'd drawn so many cards. I was kind of thinking that the Kinnan player would be able to keep them in check, and the 2 Rhystic Study players would be able to fight. So I paid for the Rhystic Study. I didn't hold up my Red Elemental Blast. The Blue Farm player didn't do a ton. Cody, after all of their said and done, they were able to have Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, and I tapped out on mana, so I wasn't able to play my Red Elemental Blast. And the Kinnan player and Blue Farm player kept on digging a little bit, but they just didn't have any interaction. They had blew everything they had, and Cody player won. But Cody doing the extra stuff, like even through a Wheel of Fate into a Bowmaster, like I didn't think that was right. I was like, why would you not just go for a Profane Tutor every time? It kind of made sense. Like they had like backup plans and backup strategies. Like they were able to show several powerful, easy, ton of mana spells, and it ended up working out for them. But yeah, so I lost that one. I'm 1-2-1 at this point. Pretty sure that I am not going into top 16, and confirm that I did not.
Yep. So
So I'll go now. Thanks a lot
Yeah,
for
see
having
you
me.
later. But yeah, so going into top 16, now it's just you and me here, Tyler.
I have to say, I felt like in both the semis and the finals, the seat order and the fact that I was going first felt really important. So I feel like I really benefited from having won round 4 and had the best record going into that, because both times, semifinals and finals, definitely being on the play was a really big boon for me.
Do you want to go first about your first top 16 match?
It was a pretty quick one. It was over on turn 3. So I played a Mana Crypt start, and I played something else on turn 1. I don't quite remember what. I don't think it was Kinnan yet. And then turn 2 was the Tivit player that I had played in round 1, CJ, super nice guy. And he played a Blind Obedience, which had I been not in seat 1 would have like definitely shut me down. And I think he was kind of keeping the hand he kept on the assumption that Blind Obedience would be enough to slow down Rogsai and my deck Kinnan enough to be able to like kind of get into where Tivit shines in the like early mid game. It went around the board. Rogsai player had like a play Roger, normal turn 1. Turn 2, I got Kinnan out and got somewhat set up. I was low on cards in hand, but I had a Court of Calling and a Force of Negation, which I assumed I was going to need for this turn cycle. Tivit and then Tayum player, the same Tayum player I had played in round 3, didn't do much on that turn cycle, or at least not much that impacted me. And the Rogsai player went to play a Defense Grid, which made me really nervous, in part because Ryan is a very good player, and he also had previously told me, yeah, sometimes in Rogsai I'll just play a Defense Grid and pass, knowing that if it gets back to me, I'll win on my turn. If it's early enough, I can just do that. So he said, are you winning on your turn? And I said, no, because with what I had in hand, I definitely could not win on my turn. So I ended up pitching Tidespot Tyrant to Force of Negation to counter the Defense Grid, and felt reasonably good about that, but it feels bad to spend your last counter spell just like countering a Defense Grid that's not even winning on that turn.
Especially getting rid of the Tidespot Tyrant to do it. That kind of stinks.
Yeah, and then we're under a Blind Obedience, so I think I'm on the really slow plan. But I untapped and I drew a Basalt Monolith for turn, naturally.
Just top deck
Holy
it.
cow, fucking top decked it. So on turn 3, I was able to play, I think some other Mana Rock was my other last card in hand. I played Basalt Monolith, which entered tapped because of the Blind Obedience. But, I mean, Basalt has an ability that untaps it on the thing, and I had enough mana to just pay that and then try and get rolling with Basalt. So I did that, could demonstrate an infinite colorless, and, I'm sure they're looking at me like 1 card left in hand, and he's probably going to play a value piece. And I had exactly enough 1 green mana on a land and 2 creatures that could tap for green to convoke Court of Calling for X equals a zillion, find Thrasios, win the game.
Incredible.
Oh, that's amazing.
It felt extremely lucky
It was
rip
just
the
perfect.
Basalt.
But
Yeah.
you played to you play those cards in your deck so that you draw them, and you played to your outs. Like that was like you countered the right thing. The Defense Grid. I think it was just Kinnan's great. Kinnan does that.
But I do think I benefited a lot from variance in that game, which, spoiler alert, same thing with the next round.
That's what happens in Magic. Like that's how you win tournaments of Magic. Is just some things are going to go your way. Like you just are on the right side of luck. Like yes, you're playing well. Yes, you're making the right decisions. Yes, maybe your opponents are doing some things wrong, but you are getting a little lucky. That's part of it.
Fuck, I'm sorry, I have to back up.
Yep.
I messed up. I said that Tayum player was in seat 3. It was my friend Chen who was playing Niv Mizzet. I totally forgot. He mulled all the way down to, I think he mulled down to 3 and kept a Urza Saga Lightning Bolt Dockside, hoping that was the 3 that would get there, and it did not get there. But yeah, sorry. I saw a lot of that Tayum player. Chen, you did your best with the 3, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so my top 16 match was the Cody player going first that we've all faced at this point now. The Tim the Crown player that I faced off in match 1, me going third, and then a Doretti deck going last. So immediately I know what this Doretti deck's trying to do.
Turbo One Ring.
Turbo One Ring, and they do like a Mio Gaia's Cradle. I'm blowing up their spot so that the table knows, especially because it's the Blue Farm player's second day playing this format. I need to let him know what this other deck's gonna do.
Derevi, right?
Derevi.
Not Doretti.
Not Doretti.
Okay.
Derevi. Oh my god, I hate
Turbo One Ring.
Yeah, Turbo
Bant.
One Ring. Instead of Turbo One Ring in red.
Right, yeah.
I had heard all day that this Cody deck can hang in the mid-range. So my perception of this deck is that it's Cody, but it's slow. So they turn 1 Cody, and Doretti has a Swords to Plowshares for it, thankfully, on their turn 1. But my previous searching for Mystic Remora did so well for me. So I did keep a hand that had a Vamp Tutor for the Mystic Remora, but I also had in my hand Thoracle Tainted Pact. So I'm like, I only have 2 lands. I need to be able to get some value so I can make some mana so that I'll be able to survive long enough so that I can get this down. So between my Mystic Remora and a Ledger Shredder and the Duretti player getting down Captain's to say, tapping it on their next turn to search for the One Ring and slamming that into play, we're all setting up for the long game. And then Cody, who had played their Cody again on turn 3, by the time their turn 4 comes around, is now able to play Culling Ritual. And this is where I thought that I was going to get a bunch of extra cards, and I thought, but the way that Cody works, first of all, you can activate Cody a second time and then get 2 cascades off of the next thing that you cast, right? So that's busted. I didn't really fully realize that. So he casts Culling Ritual then and gets 2 Cody triggers, which he cascades into, and then doesn't have to cast right away. So now all of my card advantage is going to go away before he's going to cast these other spells.
Calling the Weak, the ritual?
Calling the Weak?
Culling Ritual.
4 mana spell?
The 4 mana one that's going to get rid of my Mystic Remora, so I won't have the opportunity to draw more.
That's not Calling the Weak. That's Calling Ritual.
That's what I said.
That's what you said. But
Ritual.
so he's
Okay.
cascading into a 3-drop or something then off of that, right?
It can be anything. It doesn't have to be a 3. It can
But
be
it's just less
anything.
than 4.
Just less than 4.
Okay,
yeah.
so it's not necessarily one of his things that he's going into off of the
No,
activation.
it's not.
Okay.
In fact, he cascades into untappers that
Okay.
allow him to like
Do it again.
untap Cody and just like keep spinning so that eventually he can cast a 1 mana thing that will go get him the Profane Tutor.
Excellent. Okay. I'm with
Looking
you.
at the list, I totally misunderstood what everyone was saying, and I should have asked more questions about this Cody deck because it is still a very fast list. It just has other options for when it needs to go to the late game, which I should have been more prepared for. Instead of setting up for this late game situation I thought we were going to go into, I'm now like caught with my pants down without much interaction up, and I can just kind of let this Cody go.
It seems like what the Cody has is more gas, a little bit less interaction, and just like a ton more like active stuff to do. So by hanging in the late game, it just tries to win like several times, I think is like what people were saying, right?
Yeah, and I took it for, oh, it's going to play Red Elemental Blast and
Right.
shit like that. But it's not. It's not on any of that kind of stuff. So the Cody deck ended up clutching the top 16 game and made its way to top 8.
Beat both of us.
To top 4. Yeah, it did. It crushed us. Yeah.
So top 4.
Top 4.
You made the top 4. Tell us about it. What
did. I
are
was
your
just-
thoughts going in?
I was in seat 1 going into top 4, so I was delighted about that. But I was against the Cody player that I was scared of. That I only knocked out of the first game by Force of Will into Cody on turn 1, and against the Tayam deck that I had lost to in round 3, my only loss of the tournament, and another Kinnan deck, which that didn't especially scare me. To be honest, I usually feel pretty confident in the mirror match, sort of, if it comes down to a race between 2 Kinnans, because I just have so much experience piloting the deck.
Yeah.
So more than any other, I know what they're likely going for, and I know how to interact with it. I loved the Cedar, was really excited, extremely nervous, and my first 7 was total dog shit, and I was like, oh, fuck, second 7, like, no lands. I was just like, oh, no, I'm totally screwed. Oh, I'm totally screwed. And then the third hand that I looked at was, I don't remember what the 7th card was that I put on the bottom, but the 6 that I kept was Elvish Spirit Guide, Mox Diamond, Minamo, the One Ring, Mana Crypt, and Thorn Mammoth. Which
is a great hand. It's turn 1 ring.
Already a turn 1 ring.
Yeah.
Right, it's great.
Absolutely. And in Kinnan, you're always going to play the Mox Diamond rather than the land because it'll eventually tap for more mana. But with Elvish Spirit Guide, that's still a turn 1 ring. So I couldn't have been more excited. And I drew another land. So what this changed for me is that I could be extra cautious and play a turn 1 ring that was my second spell using Elvish Spirit Guide instead of my third, so that not even Mind Break Trap was an option. It had to be, Force of Will, Force of Negation, something like that.
So you play land, Mana Crypt, Elvish Spirit Guide, and then cast a 1 ring.
That's exactly what I did.
And then you can cast Mox Diamond
And
afterwards.
then I cast Mox Diamond afterwards, yeah. Turn 1 ring on the play, if you've never had the pleasure, feels unbeatable.
Especially with a deck
Yeah.
like Kinnan that can give you enough mana to cast all of your spells right away. You don't get bottlenecked at any point. Like,
It's a
yeah.
fucking Seedborn Muse deck.
Yeah, exactly.
The One Ring
Holy
is
shit.
so good with Seedborn Muse.
Yeah.
So turn 2, I got a Kinnan down and, drew many cards. And turn 3, I was able to cast a Void Winnower. Just natural
Just an 11
from
mana,
hand
turn
Void
3,
Winnower.
yeah.
Yeah, tons of mana coming down. The Cody player played a Mystic Remora and was trying to hang off of me doing a lot of stuff, but was doing a lot of tutoring, and it didn't seem like they were going to have a way to dig out. Tayum player got stuck on one land and could basically do nothing. And the other Kinnan player did get Kinnan down, play some rocks, do some stuff. But somewhere around turn 3, I got a Cyclonic Rift down. I eventually tutored for Seedborn Muse, and it was pretty clear that there was no getting out of it.
It's hard to be the Kinnan player that has to follow up the Kinnan player that got a turn 1 ring and be like, hey, I'm threatening 2.
Yeah, it's just so small in comparison.
I mean, there was a little bit of interaction that happened, but it was very much a game that was...
It was your game to lose.
It was, it kind of felt like it was over turn 1.
Definitely. But like, that's what happens. Like we were saying, like in order to win a tournament, you got to get lucky. Some of those games, you got to get some good lucky hands. You made good mulligan decisions. You didn't keep the garbage 7 or the second 7. You found the mulligan 6 and it was a great one.
Astoundingly, I did still misplay, actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you have any ones in mind that you can think?
No, I know exactly. There's one thing. So I had Minamo in hand as my land that I already had, which is great with the One Ring, obviously. And what I drew was a fetch land. And I was looking at my cards, looking at the amount of green mana that I might want over the turn cycles. And I made the decision to keep the fetch land and crack that and get the Trop Island rather than play the Minamo as land for turn so that I wouldn't get stuck on colors at all.
Yeah.
I don't think that was right. I think I probably should have just kept the Minamo. I had a fucking turn 1 One Ring.
I will say I had 2 Minamo One Ring situations for me throughout the day, and it was fucking awesome. They were drawing a ton of cards. That might have helped seal the deal, but you're also already so ahead. I do get the thought process of just like, I just want to make sure I can cast my spells. Like I got draw. I don't need to like go overboard. I just want to make sure I can cast spells and it was good. So I do get it, but it would have been more Magic Christmas Land if you kept the Minamo, sure.
Absolutely.
So what we learned this weekend, because this event happened the same weekend as the Boil, is that Kinnan is still top dog, because there were 2 tournaments same weekend where 2 Kinnan decks made it to the top 4 and took the whole tournament too. So
this is Kinnan's time right now. I feel like we talked about earlier. If this is mid-range season, if that's what the world we're living in, Kinnan, I feel like Kinnan is near top dog at that. Yes, Blue Farm is great at grinding. Yes, Atraxa is great at grinding. These other decks can do that, but Kinnan is just like Tron. It just goes way over the top.
Shut the fuck up. Don't tell anyone. Like, can we go back to like 2 years ago when people were like, oh, it's like a tier B deck?
Yeah.
No,
I would say
to get the format to speed up. What I've learned from Cody and Rogsai this weekend is that, well, I got to play something fast again.
Yes, we had a short recently where I was talking about some stacks pieces that were used against to like help stop a Kinnan deck. And the joke was, if you watch that video, is Kinnan still won that game because stacks things to stop the Kinnan is just not the greatest strategy. We don't want to tell all your secrets, but you would probably admit that like fast decks are that's how you beat Kinnan, is you go faster than them. You win on turn 2.
Most stacks decks Kinnan loves to see.
Yeah.
Like even when you get Dranith out of your Kinnan, like a lot of the time I still feel like I'm going to win that game eventually.
You do have Force of Will, you have the counter spells, you do have ways to stop the early wins, but like that's the way to beat Kinnan, is to go before they get set up. If you're trying to grind with them, or if you're trying to go for more protected win, by the time it gets to like a lot of times like turn 4, turn 5, Kinnan is just going to completely take over unless you go out of your way to focus Kinnan out of the game. That's like, I guess, another way. You could just, everyone say, we'll spend all of our removal on the Kinnan and maybe that's okay.
But someone else just wins who's not you
exactly.
anyway.
Like that's not a good winning strategy. That's a good defeating Kinnan strategy.
Just winning the game is the best way to win the game.
Right, exactly. Just winning the game. Play to win. That's the way to go.
So why didn't you guys just do that in the tournament?
Dude, I don't know why I just didn't play a Grixis deck. Why did I play a fucking Sands Blue Stacks deck? Blood Pot is awesome, but I got to play more Grixis decks in tournament.
Yeah.
That was my biggest takeaway.
I'm going fast next time, yeah.
Before we go, I have some rapid fire questions for you. Kinnan's good. I have a couple Kinnan questions. Do you think you can handle that?
No.
Okay, we're going to do it anyway. What do you think Kinnan's biggest strength is?
Definitely just the mana ability. The fact that it allows you to rent mana so fast, particularly if you land any of the turn 1 mana positive rocks and a turn 1 Kinnan. Like you can be doing things that most opponents can't do until turn 3 or even turn 4 on turn 2 with a turn 1 Kinnan. So it is definitely the explosiveness of mana.
What about weakness? What's Kinnan's biggest weakness? I know you don't want to admit the weakness, but if you had to pinpoint one of Kinnan's biggest weaknesses, what would you say?
That's tough. I think I would say there's a lot that it just does not do without the commander. If you don't have Kinnan, then you can still eventually play big fucking value creatures for their natural mana costs, and you will eventually get there. But that you can be vulnerable for a bunch of turns if Kinnan gets Gilded Draked or Dranith Magistrated or something removed in a way that you can't deal with. Having so much reliance on the commander is definitely an issue.
Okay. What about advice? What's one piece of advice that you would give to a Kinnan pilot to do better with the deck?
In terms of how they play or in terms of list choices?
Either one. What's the first that comes to mind?
One piece of advice.
I think how they play is harder to learn. And what I would say about playing Kinnan is almost always if I if I have a play that I feel like is going for it and I can like maybe win, versus a play that, you know, just extends the game longer, I will always make the choice to be patient and try and take the play that extends the game longer. Because sometimes like you will lose and you'll go, man, I wish I had taken that window. But because it is so much Kinnan strength, most of the time, if you can just stop your opponents from winning instead of actively trying to win until you are in a crushingly like overpowering advantage situation, that is what the deck is best at. So stick to that. You know, make the choice. Don't try and seize the window if you think you're going to get blown out.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. We talked about this one a little bit. What's one piece of advice you have for people who are trying to disrupt Kinnan?
Honestly, I don't think Kinnan gets removed enough, and I understand why. It feels like they're literally just going to play it the next turn. They already have all this mana down. It's at most stopping them for one turn, but like that can be what it takes. I mean, if you want to beat Kinnan, remove the Kinnan. I mean, the other thing is run more counter spells that can hit creatures. Like, you know, you can't counter the things that are flipping off the top of Kinnan, but if you can deal with Kinnan, can persuade your opponents to deal with Kinnan, the only other way that deck is going to win is by playing the big creatures honestly. And if you cast a delay on a Tidespout Tyrant, I'm fucking done. I can pack it up.
Love it. Final question. What's the best Simic deck in CDH?
Here in Toothy.
Here in Toothy. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to support us directly, you can do so on Patreon, like our $100 patrons.
Sean in the Ice, Mark Cirillo, SoCal Acura, Stormageddon, AJ Alwosabi, Demon of Rosgrees, Uncle Butts, Kawaja A. Hamid, Lauren Connell, and Baby G-Bus.
If you want to pick up any merch, you can do that at playtowinmtg.com or pull it off our Cold Dead Bodies.
If you want to, our sponsor, Dragon Shield, they are our sponsor and they are great and wonderful. Go click the link down below. That's not how that's normally said on a thing.
It is for this time. Follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Toodaloo.
And listening.
Tyler Watson, Zachary Colson, Tyler H, X Tyler the Tree X, Malcraft, Driving Crooner, Jabaha, Mace the Ace, Dalton Poteet, Hobo Ghost, Mitchell Shepard, Justin, Man Solo, Pedro, Jacob Depp, Michael Ballou, Jan Wildfang, Thomas Bueno, and David Nelson.
You know that every time you read the $50 patrons, like in my head the whole time, it's just playing that stupid 55 song that was like popular when we were 18.
My girlfriend's age, 55.
Well, yeah, and so at the end, as you're saying all these $50 patrons, I'm just like, Swifty.
55 hot dogs, 55 buns, 55 fries, 55 shakes.
yeah.